Hey guys, how are you? This is Ted Mercedes. Here to present something a little different from Trainer Evolution. This is definitely about programming in regards to periodization and a different perspective. Basically, what we'll be covering is skill training. One of my favorite perspectives of what we do as trainers and strength and conditioning coaches is just the sheer fact that we teach skill. Yes, it's got to do with a load, barbell, sandbag, kettlebell, dumbbell, doesn't make a difference. We inherently teach movement, and that movement is essentially skill. And what this workshop is all about is about programming and programming and the execution of the program. Because essentially, when you really take a look at it, we utilize different sciences in order to paint that picture. And that picture meaning becoming a periodized format. Now, this doesn't make a difference whether or not you want to call this picture conjugate, linear, nonlinear, summated, pendulum. Doesn't really make a difference. Essentially, at the end of the day, it's still a program. One's not better than the other. They definitely do have their pros and cons. And that's predicated upon where your athlete, where your client is in terms of their fitness and athletic level. So let's begin. So what we're going to do is essentially chunk this out into 3 parts. We're going to define a skill, facets of learning a skill. And looking at skill from a strength perspective, in the first part, and then we're going to look into educational programming, what essentially that means, the timing of progressions and why, why should we time progressions? Why can't we just, simsalabim, there you go, putting things together in the real world. I'm going to give you an example of an athlete that I was training, in order to win, different competitions, in his first competitions, in fact. So let's take a look. What's a skill? The psychologist Guthrie basically took a look, and a skill consists of your ability to bring about some end result, with a maximum amount of certainty, minimum outlay of energy or time and energy. If we take a look at the things that we're good at every day, we really don't have to think about it. Whether that be typing, whether that be getting up and down and out of a chair, whether that be eating, we don't really have to think about those things. We've learned that, in our infancy. And when you really take a look at, skill in terms of progression, take a look at a baby, after being born, they learn certain things, everything from how to take their arm and throw it over and utilize that momentum to take their whole back and get onto their other side, from crawling to doing like a belly crawl, to a commando crawl, to all 4 points crawl, to cruising, to being able to control their equilibrium or maintaining their center of gravity or base of support. It's pretty phenomenal thing to watch, as you watch someone kind of learn and master a skill. Suzanne Higgins, motor learning specialist, and instructor. And Dr. Higgins basically says skill is viewed as a form of competence. It's degree of effectiveness, which is absolutely true. You're either skillful or you're not skillful. Skill level is high or skill level is low. When you really take a deconditioned individual that, probably hasn't seen the inside of a gym, since, elementary school, and then, they're really coming in and asking for your help. You can really see that, this individual, may play a badass couch commando, but, when you get them in a squat rack to do a movement assessment or in a squat position to do a movement assessment, all of a sudden you realize that this person really doesn't know how to do that and doesn't know how to move. When you really take a look at this, what is a skill, again, it's done with a high degree of success, minimum energy expenditure, and minimum movement time. Yes, if the loads are heavy enough, if you happen to be experienced enough, and you happen to be able to load your client or your athlete to those 95 to 100%, 1x2s or whatever it is that you're doing with your client. Yeah, the movements will be slow, but that's only because the inertial condition that you're set or the intensity that you had set is such that requires this individual to move slow. But overall, this person doesn't really have to think about it, which is a pretty phenomenal thing, and they're able to execute it in most environments. Again, Dr. Higgins, if you ever get a chance to talk to her, unfortunately she's retired out in Arizona. It's skillful movement is essentially an organized product. It really is. I mean, it's all the body segments that's orchestrated to move all at once. It's well timed, it's well directed, it's very task specific. Conforming to constraints imposed by the morphology of the individual, which is actually really kind of cool, when you really think about it. Our bodies are able to move in regards to constraints that you put upon it due to the environment, or constraints that you put upon it in terms of morphological constraint of what an individual can do. I mean, we've all seen these miracle videos of individuals with chopped off arms, but yet they're able to brush their teeth with their feet. It's a pretty amazing thing. How these people overcome the challenges of not having hands or an eye, or their ability to see depth, but yet they're able to do things that I'm probably not even be able to do. When you want to take a look at facets of skill learning and skill mastery, there's three very distinct things that you got to take a look at. Skill acquisition, skill retention, and skill modification. What we do as strength and conditioning coaches and trainers is essentially we teach a given skill, and let's call it a squat. And we put them in a GPP phase. For some people that don't know what that is, general preparatory phase. If you're a big fan of Ripito, I believe he calls it, SS, starter strength phase. And essentially what you do is you give them very rudimentary things to do, and they practice these things. Let's call it a squat. Okay, granted, it may not be heavy. They may be a little off in their form, and what you're doing is hopefully you're coaching them along. And slowly but surely, as you begin those practices of squatting, from workout to workout, you're essentially helping the deeper lay of that particular skill into the brain. So in other words, that retention gets deeper and deeper. Once they master, how to do that, let's call it body weight for a deconditioned individual, then you begin to change the context of that given movement, so that they're able to do, that particular skill in any given environment. So let's call this environment 135-pound squat, and have them practice it. Again, they got to acquire that skill of being able to squat at 135. They got to practice it in terms of skill retention, and then once they do it for a certain capacity, then you're going to change the context again. And what you really want to take a look at, when you do your needs analysis as a trainer and as a coach, what exactly are these individuals looking to do? If we take a look at this particular equation, at the right side, you got two athletes. Don't count the guy that's taking the picture. You got two athletes here. One guy that's blocking with his face, another guy that's getting kicked in the face, or doing the kicking, I should say. And how does a bench press equate to that? Well, okay, so this guy's got a big, strong chest. What does that mean in terms of being in a clinch? What does that mean in terms of let me block with my face, because it doesn't look like it's helping him? And these are some of the questions that you really need to take a look at, and these are some of the questions I pose every time I get onto one of those digital forums, and people's like, okay, you got to do bench this, and you got to do bench, you got to do squat, you got to do, your basic three. Okay, but for what? What essentially are you doing? I mean, are you helping this guy, run his marathons a little bit better? Are you helping this guy being able to push weight a little bit better? Because last time I checked, in rugby, there's no bench to lay down on. You know, and the same thing with the Olympic lifts. I'm a big fan of Olympic lifting. You know, I do it on occasion whenever I get to work out, which is rarely these days. You know, and you know, there's nothing like a forceful triple extension and hip drive. Most people don't know how to do that. You know, to utilize their posterior chain in order to really propel. You know, and most coaches will tell you that's the best exercise. You know, in terms of if you can't do anything else, you might as well do your Olympic lifts. All right, that's great. It teaches you how to explosively move. It teaches you how to jump at the bar. But at the end of the day, if you're a tennis player, how does that help you? You know, so that you could better recognize the ball and swing that racket to be coincidental with that ball to win the match. It really doesn't. So in terms of programming and execution of a program, you really need to understand, you know, what the bigger picture is and how these little pixels that you have equate to that bigger picture. You know, so next time that you think about, you know, programming someone out, take a look at the bigger picture. Next time that you do your needs analysis, make sure you find out what activities that they're doing, even if it's not a non-sport, you know. Even if it's, you know, I live life and I got to chase my kid around. Okay, so how does the movements that you're going to assign, how does the loading scheme and structure that you're going to assign to this individual going to assist them and help them obtain their goal of being healthy and being able to keep up with their child, and or being able to, you know, get out of the way of a moving bus. You know, and that's it for part 1. So I hope you enjoy that. Look out for part 2. You know, and definitely look out for the website that's up and coming, Trainers Lounge. Talk to you guys soon. Take care.